All right, well, we're live. I'm very excited for this one. I have the wonderful, the talented, the very acclaimed across multiple chains, Rocket Girl. This has been a really fun one. We've worked together for other drops or other sets of prints that Rocket Girl's put on Bitcoin, and she's also worked with Counterfeit Cull on Bitcoin, but she's got a huge repertoire, and she's been a Gamma Partner artist, and we've been super proud of that. But Rocket Girl, such a pleasure to meet you. For the people who don't know you, introduce yourself, or even for the people that do know you, reintroduce yourself. Feel free to go as far back as you like, maybe when you were just a little rocket girl and you realized that you were creative. But how did you get to this point? I'm super curious. Seriously got a story to tell.
Oh, good. Lovely to be chatting. So yeah, I think I first realized or remembered or decided I was going to be an artist probably probably about four or something like that. I was like lived in the countryside in Ireland, and I had this obsession with painting stones and rocks. I had all this little gallery, and then I told my parents I wanted to sell these painted rocks. And they allowed me to set up shop at the bottom of the driveway. And I did really well. I sold out, but it was to my family. They own all the farmland around, so they were just coming past and buying my stones. But yeah, so that was my first taste of being an artist. And I think I'm also at my childhood and at school. All I ever wanted to do was paint. Yeah, I loved school; it was fine, but I was just like just always doodling and blah blah. Yeah, I ended up I think I listened to the sensible voice of my mom and went to university to do business studies and then PR, law, stuff like that. But I always wanted to, I always kept the art practice going, and I just kind of, I did it in the back burner. Um, and fast forward after my daughter was born, fast forward, quite a few years. So around 2017 or so, um, I had just been like, showing my work to a friend of my ex-boyfriend's, and he was a curator for quite a big gallery in the city in Edinburgh, where I live. And he's like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I really, like, you've got it. And I'm like, got what? He's like, you've got it. I'm like, okay, pal. And he was just adamant. He's like, you have to do it. You have to, just keep going. And like, maybe, and he organized, said, try and organize a solo show. And just, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just painting, having a glass of wine, painting, just chilling, doing my normal job. And at that point, I was working in blockchain, which was kind of cool. So when I got into crypto, I started working for a blockchain startup. Um, and I mean, I like my job and all the rest of it, but I was slowly going, oh my God, I wonder could I maybe become an artist. Anyway, did the first exhibition, went great, COVID happened. So it's a lot of people in the States, they were like, working different things. And so I just didn't really, I kept painting throughout lockdown and stuff. Um, but then, as I say, I was into crypto 2017 or so, but I knew about crypto art. I didn't have the inclination to do it because I wasn't confident enough in just, putting myself out there. It was a lot, it was very small back then. And I forgot all about it. And I think 2021, I remember the same ex-boyfriend was like, he texted me, he's like, have you put your art on ETH yet? I'm like, what? All right, is it, it's the thing. So sort of minting then that year, and the rest is history. I went full time as an artist, to 2022. And I've primarily was on mostly on ETH, and then I came to the mother chain 2 years ago, which I've wanted to do for a while, but it just took a bit longer than I planned. So yeah, that's in a brief nutshell.
Yeah, it definitely is in a nutshell. Obviously, like there's a lot there. It's so fascinating, isn't it? I know that you said your family bought out your first collection, but you have obviously had like a punch on or like a love of painting. Where do you think that came from? Like, obviously, you don't just go from painting stones to painting as exquisitely as you do. You know, have you studied it, or have you had mentors or teachers, or like tell us about your practice?
Years after the Great Stone incident, people obviously saw my talent. No, my auntie's an oil painter, and she's a landscape painter, and my mum and dad were like, yeah, do you want to just, or no, she actually offered, and I was like, I think I was about 7, I was really young. And I just remember loving the fumes. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I was like sniffing the paint and stuff. Such an idiot. But I remember loving, like, she showed me how to mix paints, I was so young, but I'm a great believer in, just picking up. You can just do things. And luckily she was like that. She didn't have any preciousness about her studio. She would just let me go in, and at the amount of times I spilled turpentine and paint, and then I obviously at school I studied I did advanced art, and I absolutely loved it. I spent my whole time in the art room. And I got into art college, but I just didn't go, as I say. But yeah, over the years I've done, like, courses and stuff, but mostly self-taught. Um, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. It's quite amazing to be as good as you are and be self-taught. Obviously, your auntie, like you said, must have uh, had an impact on you. How have you found that? I guess artists create in lots of different ways, but how have you found that your sort of style has evolved, or how have you kind of like landed on perhaps like a way or a technique, or like sort of like what you're happy to create?
The start, I will admit, I was kind of like just trying everything. I didn't really know what, because I was relatively new as an artist, I guess. As practicing full time. And I knew that I would find a direction, but I just thought I'm just going to try. I was always drawn to figurative work. I really like movement. I've got like a deep love of dance and theatre, and I think I just love that kind of, that kind of energy. But yeah, I think it was last year I just sort of decided to, focus on really honing down what my direction was. And it worked out to the point where I was working in both digital mixed media and traditional painting. But since I went to Bali last November for a wonderful art residency for a month. And I think it was there. I was there to paint. I wanted to paint anyway, but I was surrounded by loads of, like, traditional oil painters, and amazing. I think actually Lizanne Hatch just done a drop on Bitcoin, so me and her were painting buddies every day. It was awesome. And I just decided, I'm like, I'm just going to go all in on painting. And so I really wanted my work to evolve, to kind of level up. And so I've been focusing on that for the past, couple of months. And my mentor is now ChatGPT, which is very handy. So I've basically been getting it to, like, completely take me through, like, advanced oil painting. And it's been a bit of a ride, and I feel like I'm really improving. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that, but first tell us about Bali. Obviously, I was fully aware that you were there. It was amazing to have Lizanne drop on Bitcoin with us at Gamma as well. She's gorgeous. Her work is incredible. It's such a. We'll touch again on like the importance, or the how interesting it is to preserve art on Bitcoin. And well, we don't need to name names, but we're seeing issues with, like, NFTs surviving at the moment. If you've been on X, but, like, yeah, tell us about that experience in Bali and being surrounded by other creatives who create in different ways. Obviously, like you said, you were painting a lot with Lizanne, but yeah, how impactful is an experience like that?
I'm not the kind of person who would mince my words, and it was life changing. It really was. I so, like, as an adult, you don't, besides spending time with your kids and your partners and whatever, you don't really we don't really get a chance to spend real quality time with our friends, or people that are not outside of our immediate families, when we get to a certain age. And it was just, we had a whole month, of, like, with 10 people living in, like, Big Brother house type scenario. And it was just, the energy was insane. Like, Bali, for a start, is, as you know, it's full of this creative energy. So there was that. And then there was also this hum of, like, 10, like, unbelievably talented artists. And Kirill, who organizes the residency, he's nothing short of an absolute wizard. You know, like one of the just he's just amazing, and he managed to bring together a group of diverse, literally all corners of the earth, but a diverse group of people who were all we were all complementary to each other in different ways. You know, like so there's photographers, AI artists, mixed media, painters, 3D sculpting, everything, and it was just by day three we had all of the non-painters wanting to paint because they could just see us like being, but it was just wonderful just to be like and also I'm not used to people watching me paint. I didn't really like it before, but now I am like because I'm like dancing about when I'm painting. I get very into it, and it's can be kind of intense. And it was wonderful watching other people and how they approach it. Like my friend Andres, he's just so calm. It's like he's like "Duh, duh, duh." I'm like, how do you? And there's me like paint everywhere. Like the landlord was coming round because the paint was on the floor, and I'm just like, But it was learning to kind of observe other people and build that into your own practice, And I do feel like I feel like I've learned it's like osmosis lessons. It wasn't well, I was asking, for advice and everything, but it was just that, and also just being able to talk about the struggles that we have in the space, which is really important, and face to face, and also talk about and just learn how to maybe approach different problems because everybody is good at managing certain things and other people. So yeah, it was just like a workshop built into a month. And we got to speak to people like Claire Silver and Rob to the Moon and stuff, and they did like workshops and stuff, so it was wonderful.
Yeah, and a whole month as well, which is, it's not just a few days. That would have been by the end. It would have been hard to leave. They would have, I suppose, some of them or all of them would have felt like your best friends.
Dude, we were all crying. I stayed for an extra 3 weeks and I went on a little holiday, but and we had an exhibition there too, and it was just wonderful, just seeing it all come together and then having that at the end. And yeah, I want to go back. I'm going back next year just to be a hanger on. So yeah, but it was wonderful.
And it might seem like a cliche question, but was there any really specific moment or piece of advice, or you don't have to like name the person, maybe you can if you want to, but that was perhaps like the most impactful or something that really stuck out to you, at any time during that month?
Yeah, I think it would be just the way that a Krill who, like I say, was is the residency lead. I mean, he's not only not only an artist and a very 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 talented photographer, but like he is just just exactly with the same means as anybody else that I know, and he just did it. You literally can just do something. And I remember just chatting to him, and I'm just like, it just occurred to me like, what's stopping me doing not necessarily a residency, but I've got a lot of things that I want to do to help people in the space and help forward, because instead of relying on other people to do them, you can just do it yourself, and just seeing that and just seeing the way he brought this like total magic, together just for the love of the game, and he's got like a tattoo in the back of his neck saying by artists for artists, and yeah, it was just being really inspired by him and his wife, and just yeah, and also it was just a laugh, as well. We had a few good times too, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I was going to say it would have been super fun as well. And, Bali's just such an amazing place. I've been lucky enough to go there as well. You touched on the fact that you are using AI for guidance, which is something that, yeah, lots of people do. It's become a totally natural phenomenon now. And I know that you've also experimented with AI through some of your work. So maybe tell us about how you've just kind of incorporated AI into different ways, just into your practice entirely.
So I got into AI probably about 3 years ago, and I was kind of a bit reticent about it. I mean, I used it for admin things, but I wasn't sure how I felt about it. And then I only got COVID once, but I got COVID and I was totally floored. I was just, I felt like I had a bad hangover, but I couldn't do any art. And I really wanted to like create. And I remember just lying in bed going, okay, I'll try this AI out for size, And I really, really I enjoyed the fact that a lot of times with art, you come across a roadblock or you can't, and then I'll just just forget about it, whatever. And it just gave me this kind of like, oh, okay, this is a really, really good way of generating ideas. And, like it's just, I just saw the potential. Um, and then I think actually with my first piece, I randomly entered the Claire Silver competition and it came second. I was like, what? Then I was kind of hooked, but I always, I've got a deep appreciation for people who use AI and just use it on its own, but I always like to add a bit of myself to it. So I would always paint on the work, or collage with it, and or maybe mash up some of my own work with that. And it could be different layers. It could be like a base layer, or it could be something as simple as a little collage artifact or whatever. So I've weaved it into most of my work. And yeah, like I say, the straight oil painting, the fact that I'm now basically just going through every stage of the paintings, just trying to get feedback, because it's like, it's basically priceless in terms, if you haven't got somebody there to like, and also I'm really wild for like, mixing a color and forgetting what it was. So I'll just take a photo of all the paints I've got, brushes, here you go. What can I do now? So it just makes life really easy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite incredible the different ways in which you can use it. Obviously, big fan of how you've used it, but it's fascinating, and I think it's a great learning curve. It's probably something that you definitely discussed in Bali, or are happy to talk about, that it can be a really good teacher. I know that Empress Trash uses it a lot and uses it to guide and teach and give feedback, and I think that it's something that people definitely need to lean into, because in a digital space, of course, you can reach out to people and there are plenty of people around who can give feedback, but it's there straight away. So that's so fascinating. Yeah, and touch on, you said, you've used it in parts of your oil painting. So let's talk about your oil painting. You create physically and then bring it digitally. So that's interesting in itself, because to be able to do a physical painting justice when you photograph it or scan it, but I'm not sure. Tell us, how do you do it, and then how do you I guess settle on it?
Well, what's really good about it is it kind of removes the whenever I sort of started leaning into my oil painting practice early last year, like back again, I'd been doing digital for a few years. Um, the the best thing about it is, if say you paint something and you totally screw it up, then you can just photograph it and then digitally fix it. I'm like, oh, so that it removes that kind of panic. So I didn't really, and as soon as I lost that fear of making a mistake or having, I mean, with oil painting you can just obviously cover over the mistakes, but it takes time to dry, and I've got ADHD. I ain't got time for that. So in the way that it's good, but I haven't, to be honest, I've only really, I think there's maybe two pieces that I have ever minted that were pretty different to the actual, the physical painting. Like most of them have had minimal editing, like very, very tiny, 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 tiny bits. And the thing that I was doing until I worked out how to do it, like without screwing it up, was my signature eye flashes, because as you can imagine, that requires a very steady hand. And I'm like, I'm an expressive painter, and like I'm not like, I'm not this kind of like So I've worked out a technique of doing that. So before, I would just photograph the paintings with a decent camera and decent lighting, and then just do the eye flash at the end on digitally. But yeah, but it's kind of like, it's just learning how to. And when I was at Bali as well, it was good because there was professional photographers there photographing our work, and I was able to see how they how they work with the raw files and the best settings and stuff, because I am not a photographer. I'm really not.
Yeah, that is interesting, and it just shows it's become like, because you can put your work out digitally, and then we'll touch on, I guess, like the first works that you put out on blockchain and starting on ETH. It really opens up so many different possibilities, and that's such a fascinating way to think of it, that it can kind of like reduce that worry about making a mistake, because you can play around with it digitally. I love that. Tell us about, well, it's fascinating that you started working in blockchain, for work, and that before you even minted your first piece. So yeah, tell us maybe a little bit more about that. You got into blockchain. What did you think of it? Why did it, I guess, like tickle you? And then I know that you got led into minting your first piece by an ex-boyfriend's friend, which is that's classic in itself. But yeah, just tell us about the journey into blockchain in a bit more detail.
I just finished my law degree and I'd noticed there was just like a job advert and they wanted somebody who before my law degree I'd worked in marketing. And I was into crypto in that I just started buying Bitcoin. I was very, just learning and we were all just like, really early, but we were just messing about. And so the job advert was like they wanted somebody who has marketing experience, understands crypto, and ideally has a knowledge of the law. And I'm like, I've just done a law degree and I've got marketing experience and degree and I love crypto, so it was perfect. Got hired on the spot. And it was a startup, so there was obviously like it was hard work and learning everything fast and pivoting every other day. The vibes. And just going around the world. So I went to like Montreal, a few different places for different blockchain conferences, and just being completely immersed in that world. And it was 2017, 2018, so it was fairly new, but I just absolutely loved it. I'm a total nerd, so it was good fun. And I think understanding that I think then it wasn't as common. Like nobody really knew what blockchain. It wasn't like so people felt like, what do you do for a living? I'm a blockchain marketer. They're like, what? What is that? But I had to learn how to explain it to like the person on the street, which was my role anyway. So it kind of helped me when I started in the space minting, because I already had I had a bit of coding knowledge, but I knew the fundamentals and a lot about, probably too geeky about a lot of the ETH chain provenance and stuff. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that is interesting. But you said you were buying Bitcoin before that as well, so you were into it quite early. Obviously, saw the unique value prop of it all. Do you remember the first Bitcoin that you bought?
We had to send, well, I didn't go to the car park, but my ex went to the car park, look, Tesco's car park, with a bag of cash, gave it to this dude, and then we got this code. I'm like, what? And then it was local Bitcoins as well. But I managed to fumble all my early Bitcoin, or sold it very, very early, like 20K or something. But like, yeah, it was so Wild West. And like the kids these days do not know what's going on. Yeah, I don't even remember what like the wallet was like or anything now. It was so long ago. It was just, and then getting locked out of Binance every other day. It's crazy.
That is hilarious. Yeah, buying it with cash in a Tesco's car park. That was not the answer that I was expecting. That's
Yeah.
much cooler, much cooler than most people's stories. Hats off on that one. And then, yeah, you minted your first work on ETH. Do you remember the first piece that you minted? Like, yeah, and tell us about just that feeling. And then obviously it's just, been on from there. You've been full time since 2022, which is an incredible achievement in itself to be a full time artist.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. My first bit. I mean, I waited and I observed the space for maybe so this account started in May. Yes, from May until October. By the time I actually finally got my finger out to mint something, which was kind of annoying because it was slightly towards the end of the bull run. So I kind of missed all those crazy high prices and stuff, which in a way was probably a good thing, because I think if I'd started off selling work for like 10 ETH, it'd be like, oh. And yeah, I minted the first piece one last Saturday night, sorry, on Foundation of all places. And honestly, dude, it cost me $650 to mint it. And I think I probably got 710 or around that when I sold it. I was like, yeah. But yeah, the feeling was incredible. I was just, and I remember my first thought was like, why did it take me so long? And it was just, and it was a painting that I had done a few years previous. And that was the painting that my ex's friend had seen and said, you should become an artist. So there was a lot of, full circle to it. But yeah, I still remember, you always remember your first sale, but yeah, it was first auction. So funny.
That's so cool. I love that it was the piece that your ex's friend, that's really struck him and encouraged you to, I guess, like pursue an artistic career. That's like actually quite special. And so was that 2022?
21, it was like
Oh,
October
21?
21,
Yeah.
yeah. October 21. I think it sold in like January 22, but yeah.
Yeah,
Took a long while.
and it's 2026 now, and you've released a lot of art and done incredibly well. Um, yeah, I know it's such a big question, but tell us about that journey because it's not easy, and you have made a name for yourself and established yourself, and it takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world, but yeah, there's I think there's so many things. Everything's very cyclical, you know, like there'll be times where you don't really feel that you have much traction, and you know, you just have to stop comparing yourself to other people, you know. And I learned that after maybe a year or two, you know, because I was always just comparing, and that's just comparison's the thief of joy, you know. You need to it sounds really trite, but you need to focus on your damn work and cut out the noise, you know. But it took me a while to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's so many things that come and go, and there's so many, you know, like drama that happens. I'm just like, give me some good drama. Most of the drama is just like, it's just boring, you know. It's just people getting frustrated, you know, and whatever. And artists can be like a feisty bunch, you know. But I think, to be honest, like the thing that really has kept me sane and helped me throughout, excuse me, the whole, you know, 4 years, my God, has been having a really good close circle of friends that I can just bitch about in private, and then, you know, and tell them, you know, we can all just talk about our insecurities or hype or whatever, you know. And just having that trusted, you know, 3, 4 people, I don't think I'd be able to do it without that, you know, because it's a tough old game on every single chain, every single, you know, platform. And yeah, it's just it's been a lot of ups and downs, but I think yeah, I wouldn't change a single thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. And again, you know, if you've had experience and you've gained collectors and a following, and there's, you know, the people that collect Rocket Girl and own Rocket Girl and keep an eye out on what Rocket Girl is putting out, which is you, obviously. I'd love to know where Rocket Girl came from. We can talk about that after. You know, what sort of advice would you give someone? So it's like, I know you said, you know, it's easier said than done to like block out the noise, but what are some like really key things that I guess like keep you grounded throughout the journey?
Sounding what as an artist, what you're about and what you're trying to say, and not and try not to be swayed by um you know, like current you know, metas and stuff like that, although that can be easier said than done. But I think I think also just what I have done to consistently, like I say, I used to compare myself, and then I was like, no, 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 I'm just going to learn from these people who I am comparing myself to, you know. So I studied people who were like really successful, and you know, I was really, really observant of how they held themselves, what they were doing, you know, how they were, not necessarily the art, but because the art was amazing, but it was just more like how, you know, what can I take from how they're getting traction? Because and then you would notice there's patterns. There's you know, and the biggest pattern in all of it was consistency. You know, it doesn't have to be doing the same type of art. I believe you should experiment as much as you want. You know, you're an artist, but just, you know, being consistent and like, I mean, and just being yourself. And it sounds really cheesy, but just being yourself. You know, like I don't give a toss what people think of me, because I just know who I am. You know, I'm not here to offend people. I'm not here to be nice. I'm just here to be me. You know, I think a lot of the time people are either being too divisive, or they're, but you can just be, you can do whatever you want. You know, but I think people see that. A lot of my collectors have told me that they really value my authenticity, basically. And I'm just like, well, I don't know how to be anybody else. I'm just this, you know, I'm like, it's hard enough being me. So yeah.
It's really pertinent advice, and you said earlier you're a mum, and I think that sort of advice for, you know, just like leans into parenting and encouraging your kids to be who they are, which is so powerful. So speaking of, you know, before we a little bit of a tangent, but what do your, I'd love to know, it must be pretty inspiring for your kids or your partner if you have one or just your family that you've done so well and that you've become such a wonderful artist in your own right. We can see a bit of the SERAPH behind you. Your work is so strong, and you've done so well. Yeah, like that, they must be very proud of you. But yeah, how do they respond to it? Because it's a very niche world that we live in.
I mean, so I'm actually, well, I've got my daughter's like 21, but I'm her, me and her dad, we broke up years ago. We're still married. We're very best friends, but he was around actually the other night, and whenever I first started doing this, he was like, whatever, but he just didn't really understand it. And he wasn't anti it. He's like, do whatever. But then, over time, he's like, wow, you can actually make money at this, and you're doing really well. And then I sold out a collection last October, and he was here whenever it was minting, and he was just like, how is this possible? How did you get that? I'm like, well, you've seen me working on it for the past 4 months, But he's a creative person himself anyway. I mean, he was. And then the other day he was like, I was talking about the card and the meme card I just did. He's like, you need to keep doing this art. This is amazing. I can, because he can see now that I'm getting traction. And my daughter, she's just like, she's hilarious. Like she's the first person I will show a painting to before I show it to anybody else. And I know that she won't bullshit me. She'll be like, I'm like, what do you think? And she just thinks well, for a while she thought it was me and my imaginary internet friends. Then I'm on a plane to Bali, and she's like, "Oh, these aren't, they're not actually imaginary friends; they're real people." And yeah, I'm like, that was kind of funny. But I think when I did a Red Bull collab last year, with Gate.io and Red Bull Racing, and I did that with a couple of amazing artists in the space, and that was when all my IRL friends that were just like, they saw it on Instagram, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's just, this is, they were like, we just thought NFTs was this. I'm like, yeah, but real brands are in NFTs, guys. I've been telling you. But yeah. So slowly by slowly, they're finally figuring out, and they're very proud of me. But yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. And hats off on that collaboration as well. That was, another feather in your cap. And I love that you do show your daughter. And it's funny, I know you said she's 21, but she's still a kid at 21.
Yeah,
Let's
she's
be,
so
when I was 21, I didn't think I was a kid, but in hindsight, I definitely was. It's great. They'll be super transparent and brutally honest with you. So I think it's a great thing to do.
100%, man. With her friends are
Yeah.
the same, but her friends are like, oh, I've got a few of them to model for me and stuff like that. So it's been great, but they love it. They're like, they think it's super cool. I think she's more impressed by the fact that like some random famous people follow me on Twitter, but I'm like, they follow everybody else too, but I'm not going to tell you that. She's like, Paris Hilton. I'm like, yeah, she follows everybody. But yeah.
Nah, still, she doesn't follow everybody, so it's, it's still definitely cool. And I don't know if well, I've never heard you speak on it, or or maybe you don't tell. I don't know. Where did the name Rocket Girl come from? Like, I was explaining to my kids, I was telling them about this podcast, and I showed them your work. They really love your work, by the way. My daughter really loves the SERAPH. So. And I was explaining how Rocket Girl is your artist name, and I let them know, your name, and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Which is, some artists just go by their name, and then some artists have an artist name, which I think is really cool. Where did Rocket Girl come from, if you're happy to talk on it?
So easy. So when I was at university, I was we were going out clubbing all the time and stuff. And one night I was chatting to all my friends. I'm like, because they all had nicknames. I'm like, I don't really have, apart from like like abbreviation of my name. That I don't have a nickname. And they're like, we're gonna find you a nickname. We're gonna get you a nickname. They're like, give us a minute. And I'm just like, okay. We're all like, sitting around, smoking a joint, and they're like, yes, we've got it. I'm like, what? Like, Rocket Girl. And I'm like, they're like, oh, right, okay, yeah, because you're like, as you can tell, I'm very energetic. And I speak very fast, and I do things very quickly. So yeah, and that is my IRL nickname basically. And my friends call me Rocket Girl, my family call me Rocket Girl. So when I started in the space, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, because it was just made sense. And I don't dislike my name. I just wanted to have something that was kind of, a bit more. I mean, yeah. So that's
No,
it.
it makes sense. There you go. I love it. I love it's simple. Your friends gave it to you, and it's not just an artist name; it's a nickname.
Yes,
That's so
the actual
fascinating.
nickname is my whole identity. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it then like becomes your digital identity as well. Even though you're a real human and people have met you and you do, video podcasts and there's photos of you and whatnot, it's so fascinating how that then becomes like part of the identity and or potentially even like a part of the work, really. Like I said before, like people own a Rocket Girl. They don't own, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, so I did make a tiny mistake. Rocket's actually the nickname. Rocket Girl, because there was no Rocket was really
Ah, yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking to myself, oh, but nobody calls me Rocket Girl because I'm clearly not a girl anymore. But yeah, I was just thinking Rocket Girl, that'll do, you know. But I think yeah, it has been really, and my friends thought it was hilarious. They were like, oh my God, like you've called yourself your name. I'm like, yeah, go figure. But yeah, and it's also like there's so many people with my name in the space, and I'm just like, I'm glad I didn't just go with. I mean, I didn't really want to dox my name anyway because I just think I prefer to, keep it this way because it's. But yeah,
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. And so let's pull up like your work that you've put onto Bitcoin, and there's another page as well where you worked with counterfeit, which we'll pull up as well. It's sort of like we're not going to get into them because I don't want to show everyone. People will be able to find them. Some people have, but this is what you've put onto Bitcoin. We can see the Seraph editions and the Seraph pieces, which is a big reason why we're chatting. Although we've been planning to have your partner feature for ages anyway, we wanted to get to know you and find out, more. We can see Zephyr, which is also based on a physical oil, and then your first two releases, which obviously have an original, because for editions to exist on Bitcoin, much like in the real world with prints and an original oil, the original has to be on chain as well. I think, yeah, Initium was, if I've pronounced it correctly, your first ever piece on Bitcoin, and then Epoch. But yeah, tell us about Rocket Girl on Bitcoin.
as the initium was that's Latin for beginning or entrance or yeah, initiation, So I think I'd been really wanting to inscribe for maybe a year or so before I did, but I remember speaking to a few people who had been working with you guys, and they were like spoke very highly, quite rightly, and I'd been into like buying ordinals at that point before I started inscribing my art just to get a feel for the community, and I loved it straight in with puppets, all that, and I really I've always wanted to inscribe in Bitcoin ever since I discovered Bitcoin. Whenever it was back in the day, all the counterparty stuff, whatever. And I was just like, okay, I really I want to do this. And eventually, but it was really, really. I don't get nervous when I'm minting on ETH because you can fix it. I'm like, I'll never forget the first first inscription. I was like, oh my God, I can't. This is it. But it was such a wonderful feeling. And I haven't quite done as many releases as I would like to because I'm very cautious about. I really want it to be my best work, and I want to have like a distinct direction on Bitcoin that I do on ETH. I want it to be something that's very special, and I'm still trying to develop exactly what that journey will be. But this year is going to be the year for that. And I'm getting close to some of the ideas. Oh yeah, so I did basically the three prints. Excuse me. And they all did pretty well actually. I think all of the Initium, Epoch, they're both digital and AI collage. Um, and they were they were in the same year. And the originals for those have sold as well actually, so they're completely sold out. Zephyr is my first oil painting on chain, which was really wonderful to do. And to be honest, I was very impressed with how the painting looks. I didn't think it was going to get the same fidelity, but it was perfect. It was really, I think abstract work really work. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful medium for ordinals. And the one of one is still, or sorry, the original is still available for that. And yeah, I've also, like you were saying, I did a counterfeit card with a wonderful team last year as well, which was hella fun. Oh, there we go. As if I'm magic.
There we go. I was just jumping across to it. Yeah,
I
so
love
that
it.
was with Counterfeit. So shout out to Counterfeit and shout out to Prism. And I remember that. And that was, released on Gamma, but through Counterfeit. And that also sold out. So that was a really interesting and unique, very Rocket Girl drop as well. But yeah, a little bit different too. So yeah, tell us about that experience and tell us about this work. And then we can jump back and, keep talking about what is on the other profile.
Yeah, a couple of different sketches. Um, and I got the inspiration from my city, Edinburgh. It's built around a volcano, and the theme for this drop was the orange wave. And I just remember, like, I was out for a walk with the dogs, and I'm like trying to think of the concept, and I'm just like, oh, I can do, oh yeah, orange wave magma. Just all came to me at once, And then I started seeing this valley, and it was basically the concept is about how Bitcoin is the source. It's the fountain, and everything is a tributary to that. So just this kind of like crescending, descending, tidal wave of orange fury, basically. But yeah, that was really good fun to do, and some of the work on that collection is just incredible. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a beautifully curated series,
Mhm.
and yeah, definitely your piece I think is one of the standout cards in that series as well. I'll jump back across. So I know that in that the ETH collection, I can't remember the name of it. Pardon me. What was the one that was the sold out ETH collection last year?
Oh, Eidolon, is it?
Yeah,
Or the
Eidolon. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
congratulations on that one. I know that there
Thank
were
you.
male figures in that one.
Yeah.
However, we do, I suppose, typically see the female figure or the female form in your work. Yeah, tell us, more about that and where that comes from, and I guess, the inspiration or why you tend to incorporate it.
Yeah, I just think I just find like female figures more attractive. And I also I've I've drawn men, I've painted men and stuff like that, but I tend to paint them with a female or very rarely on their own. But it's just really a preference. It's not because like I enjoy painting one more. Well, I do. I think I enjoy painting females more, but I'm kind of like now working towards doing well, now I've done dragons. I'm like, I'm ready for anything. But like, but yeah, I just like the kind of fluid lines, and I think, in terms of movement, I just think the female body looks amazing, like, and just in like suspended movement. Um, and I also like one of my other signature moves, I guess, is very expressive hair. And so, like, yeah, you keep drawing men with like really expressive hair. They kind of like it gets a bit kind of, they're all like the old metal band members or whatever. So it's kind of like, yeah, I want to keep it like that because I can play with the hair more. And also, I think it's just the art that I was inspired by when I was growing up as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, no, I've seen a lot of that. The work is, very elegant, very powerful, where it's been like a couple,
Mhm.
dancing or doing something in some of the other work, which I believe you've released on ETH. And you mentioned dragons, so feel free to quickly talk about that. In the same week that you're putting out a Gamma Season Pass holder exclusive drop with us, you also have a 6529 card out, and it has had a brilliant start. And it's a very unique piece. And like you said, you've done dragons in that piece.
Oh, the teeth, dragon's teeth are a nightmare, I swear. But yeah, it was a full oil painting. The drop just finished today, and yeah, it did really well. And it was just kind of, it was a very challenging painting. I decided this sort of the year I'm going to be like, this is the time you're going to level up, no bones about it. And I just took on like a very kind of slightly different style, so more classical oil painting. But yeah, it was very detailed. There was like three dragon heads and a female in the middle. So the dragons haunted me for about a week. I was just like, ah, can't. But yeah, it went really well.
Yeah, well, I think that you nailed it, and the dragons were. Yeah, I zoomed right in and saw the physical. I know that you took a video zooming in on the oil painting, and the textures truly quite exquisite. I know I used that word before, but I think that it sums it up. And Well, you know, where we just touched on it, there's a Gamma Season Pass holder only drop this week happening on Thursday. If we have a look, we can see we won't get into them because I don't want to. Obviously, like if people go to Gamma, they'll be able to do it themselves. But let's hold some kind of mystique here. We can see the Seraph editions and the Seraph pieces. So before we talk about them, uh, this piece began its life on ETH, and you told me that it's the only Rocket Girl self portrait that you've ever done. So tell us about this piece and tell us about its journey, and then I'm more than happy to touch on like how I suppose almost like conceptualize how this is all unfurled together. But it's been very poetic.
Yeah, this painting has got a lot of deep lore. It's yeah. So and it's something I really don't mind talking about. But it was kind of like there's been maybe twice in my life I've had like quite like period of depression, and both of those times, the thing that's cured me from it has just been painting. And the first time I didn't realize it was what I was missing, but the second time I'm like, I know what I need to do. So I'd had like a couple of months, just wasn't feeling myself, I was a bit down. And I remember just sitting on the sofa and going like, I need to paint. I need to not digitally. I need to paint. I need to paint, and I'm like that. And I I then stared at a blank canvas, the one behind me. I stared at this canvas. I had it on the easel in my living room because my studio is in the garden and it's really cold in January. I can't paint out there at the moment. It's an outbuilding. So I had this thing. I just stared at it for nights, like at least a month. And then one day I just went, right, that's enough of this, kind of like just being in this slump. And I just got out the paints. I'm like, what am I going to paint? All right, I know. I'll do a self-portrait. So got the mirror out. So I can't say mirror very well. It's like Northern Irish. Mirror, mirror. I got the mirror out and I just put it behind me and I just grabbed a bunch of colors. And I didn't even have like I hadn't been painting for that long, maybe like a year and a half, like properly. And a lot of my oil paints were like dried up or they weren't, I couldn't open them and blah, blah, blah. So I only had like 4 or 5 colors. And I'm just like, okay, let's just go for it. I didn't plan. I just put all my emotion out. And the next thing by the end of the day, a painting was magically there. And I don't even remember how I painted it. It was like a trance. And I just remember the feeling of like this like wave of relief just coming over me. I'm like, I'm not like it was weird. I was just kind of felt like I was passing this like chasm basically. And yeah, that was me addicted to oil painting again. And it's yeah, I mean a lot of my work is very much self-portraiture, but it's also like using references from magazines, from people, from AI. But this one, I mean, I wouldn't even really say it looks particularly like me, but it's a self-portrait, and it was just I just wanted to get the feeling of the way I was feeling, but like how and I don't even know what I was trying to say. But at the end of it, I feel like I really achieved what I was trying to say, which I didn't know in the first place, if that makes sense. But yeah, and but yeah, I don't know if I would want to tell you about the other thing that happened with it as well. Yeah, so I'm into the piece and a few collectors were in touch with me about it and I really wanted to I didn't want to like sell it like I didn't want to put it in the market immediately. I let people were talking to me anyway, and then this really amazing um girl, I didn't know her terribly well, but she was really well, well liked in the space. She was quite young. She had her own company, and she was like, "I love this painting," and she said she wanted to buy it. And we had agreed everything. And I'm like, I was just waiting for just um, for her to find the right. She was moving flats, etc. And then I remember just there was a period of maybe a month and a half, and I hadn't heard back from her, and I'm like, because I know her, like I knew that she was genuine, because you do get collectors, for whatever reason, they want to buy something and they ghost you, but I'm like, it's not like her. And then I just left it. I sent a few messages. I'm like, okay, we'll just, the painting was off the market, it didn't matter. And then I remember hearing on the spaces that sadly she'd had, I don't know the details, but she passed away in an accident. And so I was just like, I was absolutely devastated. Not because of the sale, God, it was because of the fact that the last message I'd sent to her was just like just boring, asking her, if she was still wanting the piece, So in a way, because of the fact that that had happened, I just didn't really feel comfortable, or didn't want to put it back on the open market. And yeah, I don't know if you want to explain, what happened whenever we were talking about the work, but yeah, that's the story of that so far.
Yeah, look, no, I appreciate you being raw and open about that, and much love to may she rest in peace, and much love to her friends and family, and that anyone that was close to her. So yeah, I'll tell my part of the story. So Rocket Girl and I were chatting about this release. We're trying to figure out what might work or what would fit, and like Rocket Girl said before, she wants. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin and ETH, and then there's Tezos, and that there are all these other chains. You can kind of pick and choose like where and what you want to put things. Some chains it's easier to put some work. When I say easy, obviously still putting out quality work, but there's just different works that you can put out on different chains. Of course, on Bitcoin, you can do that somewhat, but there are certain constraints that you have to kind of like dance around or work with as well. And that aside, when I heard that story and Rocket Girl showed me the piece, sort of, I thought it might be like respectful to that collector who tragically passed away, to kind of bring that work to Bitcoin. So it's been teleburned from ETH to make it permanent. It's kind of like a permanent memory of her, or permanent respect to her. The art's not going away now. It's immutable, much like this story or her memory for you. And then at the same time, I've always, well, I guess throughout my 4 years so far at Gamma, you speak. A big part of my job is obviously like speaking to, like, with and having like artist relations, and you realize how much of themselves, this is like my anecdote, how much of an artist's self they put out there. And then you see some collectors who really embrace that, and then you see some collectors, sadly, who potentially try and take advantage of that. And I was like, no one owns an artist. No platform owns an artist. No collector owns an artist. Artists are their own people, and they own themselves, as they should. And so I thought there's this beautiful parallel, or this narrative with, because it's being burnt from ETH, potentially the one of one being burnt, the one of one only, the original one of one being burnt from Bitcoin as well, such that no one owns Rocket Girl. They own just pieces of her, which Rocket Girl and I absolutely loved. And you can see, I don't know, I guess like, so we can see the SERAPH pieces and the SERAPH editions. So I said to Rocket Girl, this piece is quite large on ETH because you can put much bigger sized artworks directly onto ETH. On Bitcoin, you can do that in certain ways, which we did, or you can optimize and compress pieces, and they still look brilliant, just like you can see with Initium and Epoch and Zephyr. So with one of our engineers, we sort of like experimented and made sure that we could do it. I said to Rocket Girl, what we could do to make this a collection that can be collected by more than one person, or to kind of move away from just editions. And editions are great, don't get me wrong, I love editions, but we wanted to try, and Rocket Girl and I wanted to try and create something a little bit more unique, something more in the one of one realm. So we cut the SERAPH into 25 pieces, much like artists put pieces of themselves out there, not the whole thing. Oh, sorry, as in like you can't own an artist is what we were saying. And they all, I guess people can go to Gamma. We're not going to get into it. People can go to Gamma and have a look. They all look, the thing that works so well with this, and you can see with the SERAPH, is cut into pieces. They all really worked well as their own one of ones, like quite incredibly, really. So they were all inscribed using Parrot Child and on-chain metadata and all that beautiful stuff for preservation and for Rocket Girl's legacy, and then also for the collectors. And we can see you can see on other there's a platform shutting down, and that's not, but people don't even own their works necessarily, you know, and we've seen other artworks on other chains unfortunately kind of just like disappear if they're not being hosted or if they weren't on the correct servers. Anyway, so essentially it's so beautiful on Bitcoin because there's no third party risk. You know, you've mitigated that. It's on chain. You physically own it. It's almost like the most tangible digital ownership that there is. So we cut the piece into 25 pieces. They're all these beautiful one of ones. And then using code, we stitched it back together. So we recreated the piece. It makes a much larger output, but file size wise, it's tiny because it's built through code. That created the one of one, which was also then burnt. But before that happened, so we could actually do this, we created 25 editions, which again have the on-chain metadata for legacy. It all is related back to that one of one, which you can see is provably burnt again, like a piece of Rocket Girl, like an homage to that collector, an edition of the SERAPH. So collectors are going to get these beautiful one of one pieces and then also airdropped an edition. So it's quite I know that I just said a lot, but it's quite an incredible release, really. I'm so glad that I obviously like was communicating with like, this is what we're thinking. This, you know, I didn't make any decisions on your behalf. Obviously, everything went through Rocket Girl. But yeah, tell us about how all that sat with you. And I guess it's been super fun to be able to like execute on all that with you. And also hats off to Albert, one at the engineer at Gamma, who did all the code work with me and for me.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I like whenever you first told me, I was like, yeah, I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't really, I couldn't really think about how they would all look, like individually. But like when I saw them the other day, I was like, this is amazing. They do all look like individual paintings, and the detail is just, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy with how it's come out. And I've showed a few of my friends, and they're just like, that's amazing. They're like, that what wizardry is this? And I just love the fact that there won't ever be, the one of one sold and it's been teleburned, and I can't, I'm in the middle of coding my website. I can't wait to like link my ETH and my BTC collections this way as well. For me, it's like a little portal that I have in my head, and it's just, yeah, it's just such a like privilege to be able to just, do this, like, yeah, as you were saying about the marketplaces and stuff, I'm just like, oh, so it's amazing. But yeah, very excited. And yeah, I don't even know, like, it's funny whenever you can't really imagine something and then you see it just being inscribed, it's like the best feeling in the world. I was like, I can't wait to show everybody.
Yeah, no, it was such a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was, so glad that you were receptive to the idea because much like an artist, I was like, oh, hopefully she, I know you need to end up having conviction. I certainly had conviction in the idea, but you're still curious about how people will respond to it. Yeah, and I just thought it was super fitting because obviously it was paying respect to that collector who sadly passed away, and then it's also that parallel narrative of artists putting so much of themselves out there, but artists, no one owns you, like I think that that's really fascinating, and we can see, it's editions and pieces, and I think that that really fits that narrative so strongly.
Not the full compliment. Yeah.
Well, Rocket Girl, this is going to go out on, it's going to go live. The pieces will go live, and then the editions will be airdropped afterwards to the I guess, lucky collectors, because there's only 25 of them and there's a lot more season passes than that. So it is a first come, first serve release. Really looking forward to it. We're going to also be putting out an article about it too, so people can definitely have a read if they don't want to watch all 60 minutes of this, even though I would love for them to. I think it's been a brilliant discussion. I've had an absolute ball getting to know you. Thank you so much for your time and for telling your story. And yeah, just joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
So many years. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you again, Rocket Girl.